In a distant time, among silent monasteries and forests shadowed by the mist of medieval faith, one of the most enigmatic mysteries in the history of the Catholic Church was born, the prophecy of Saint Malachy. Few documents would have the power to span the centuries, carrying as much fascination and fear as this one. Composed of enigmatic mottos attributed to each future pope, the prophecy supposedly anticipates the entire papal succession. And for many, it indicates that the end of the line is approaching. St. Malachy was born in 1094 in Armagh, Ireland. He became one of the great reformers of the Church in his homeland and was canonized in 1190. Known for his life of holiness, his works of charity, and especially for supernatural visions, Malachy received an impressive revelation during a trip to Rome. According to later accounts, he had a vision that described all the popes from his time until the end of time, an uninterrupted sequence that would span centuries of history. This vision would have been delivered to the Vatican, where it was kept secret for many years. The prophecy was only revealed to the public in 1595, when it was published by the Benedictine monk Arnold of Wyon. The document consisted of 112 Latin mottos, short, sometimes obscure phrases that would describe the popes in a symbolic way. Each motto would refer to the pope's birthplace, his coat of arms, his family, some important feature of his pontificate, or even a significant event of his time. Some impressive examples of hits reinforce the belief that the prophecy would be authentic. The mottos are brief, sometimes just 2 or 3 words. Some historical examples: ex sundarum benedictione, on the blessing of the waves, associated with Pope John XXIII, who came from Venice, the city of waters. Flos florum, flower of flowers, associated with Pope Paul VI, whose coat of arms contained 3 fleurs-de-lis. These associations, often surprisingly accurate, have created an aura of mystery around the text. But what really catches the eye is the last motto, the one that would speak of the end times. The final motto of the prophecy is different from all the others. It reads, "In the extreme persecution of the Holy Roman Church, Peter the Roman will reign, who will feed his flock in many tribulations. And when these are ended, the city of the 7 hills will be destroyed, and the awesome judge will judge the people." The end. These words, loaded with symbolism and terror, speak not only of the election of a pope, but of cataclysmic events that would lead to the destruction of Rome and the Last Judgment. Interestingly, between the penultimate pope and Peter the Roman, some scholars interpret a gap, suggesting that the last pope would have characteristics that do not fit the previous pattern. Over the centuries, intense debates have arisen. Historical fraud. Some historians believe that the text was written in the 16th century to influence the papal election of the time. Coincidences. Others suggest that the descriptions are vague, enough to fit several popes. Spiritual authenticity. Many believe that the accuracy of the mottos, especially in modern popes, indicates true divine inspiration. True or not, the prophecy of Saint Malachy continues to instigate the imagination of millions, especially in times of change within the Church. And with the death of Pope Francis, the world's attention turns once again to these ancient words, asking, are we living in the times of Peter, Roman? The death of a pope always generates emotion and reflection. But the death of Pope Francis in particular has reopened a question that has long intrigued theologians, scholars, and believers around the world. Was Francis the last prophesied pope? The connection between Francis's life and the prophecy of Saint Malachy seems to many more than a mere coincidence. And as we analyze the details, signs, and events of his pontificate, questions arise that echo in the minds and hearts of millions. Are we witnessing the fulfillment of the prophecies, or are they merely echoes of human fear in the face of the unknown? Before arriving at the last motto, Peter the Roman, the prophecy of Saint Malachy describes Pope Benedict XVI as associated with the motto Gloria Olivae, the glory of the olive tree. The olive tree, symbol of peace, wisdom and spiritual continuity, fits well with the profile of Benedict XVI, a profound theologian, a calm pastor who sought to restore the roots of faith in times of crisis. When Benedict XVI resigned, a very rare occurrence in modern history, many interpreted that the prophecy was entering its final phase. With the election of Pope Francis, attention turned to the last signs. Interestingly, the prophecy of St. Malachy does not attribute a short motto to Francis as in the previous ones. It simply describes the period of great tribulation that would precede the last judgment. And so the comparisons arise. Francisque. He chose the name Francis in honor of St. Francis of Assisi, a saint associated with extreme humility, poverty, and apocalyptic visions. Francis promoted profound reforms, combating internal corruption within the Church, facing historical resistance. His papacy coincided with global crises, mass migration, pandemics, local wars, and rising religious tensions. The Church itself faced great persecution and scandals, shaking its image before the world. Many believe that all of this fits the description of a time of tribulations mentioned in the prophecy. One of the biggest questions is, if the last Pope was to be called Peter the Roman, how can we connect this to Francis? Some scholars point out Francis is the Bishop of Rome, maintaining the title Roman in his pastoral essence. His original name, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, does not contain Peter, but he has always presented himself as a servant of the people of God, following Peter's original mission. For many, Peter the Roman is not a literal name, but rather a symbolic title. The last pope would act as a new Peter, guiding the flock through the storms. Thus, Francis would not need to literally call himself Roman Peter to fulfill the Jou prophecy. It would be enough for his ministry to represent the spirit of Peter in the end times. During Francis' pontificate, the world has seen the decline of religious practice in the West, the increase in persecution of Christians in various parts of the world, the strengthening of ideologies contrary to the traditional faith extreme climate, change and natural disasters, pandemics that have shaken the global structure. For those who are attentive to prophecy, these events are not mere coincidences. They are signs that the world has entered a new era of trials. Francis, with his message of mercy and universal love, would have been the last great shepherd to try to lead humanity back to the path of faith before the final storm. With Francis' death, the feeling that a cycle is ending has become even stronger. The Vatican finds itself once again in mourning, but this time for many, mourning is deeper. It is the premonition that something much greater is at work. Will the next pope be the Roman Peter? Will he be the leader who will guide the Church through its darkest hours? Or are we already living through the final events described in prophecy? The answers, as always, remain shrouded in mystery and faith. In the end, the question remains: are the apparent connections between Francis and the prophecy of St. Malachy merely forced interpretations? Or is there, in fact, an invisible hand guiding the history of the Church toward an outcome prophesied centuries ago? The Catholic faith teaches that no one knows the day or the hour, Matthew 24:36. And yet the words of prophets and visionaries continue to echo, challenging our understanding of time, history, and destiny. Pope Francis, in life, has always pointed to hope, even in the midst of adversity. Perhaps his death, as well as his life, is an invitation to look not to fear, but to faith. Faith in that even in the greatest tribulations, the Church will remain alive as Christ promised Peter 2,000 years ago. Pope Francis's funeral was marked by tears, prayers, and a silence filled with meaning. It was not just the farewell of a spiritual leader, it was, for many, the mark of a new and unknown era. Amid this global mourning, a question resonates in the hearts of the faithful. What now? What will become of the Church? What lies ahead? The prophecy of Saint Malachy seems to suggest that great tribulations await the Church. But the Christian faith has always seen in difficult times not only signs of destruction, but also open doors to renewal and hope. According to the prophecy, after the death of the penultimate pope, Peter the Roman would arise, who would guide the Church through the greatest tribulations ever seen. But who will this Peter the Roman be? Several possibilities arise. The next pope may adopt a strongly apostolic motto or attitude, like a new Peter. The very spirit of the next pontificate may be Roman and Petrine, even without the literal name. Peter. The Church may enter an era of intense persecution and trials, exactly as described. For some modern interpreters, Peter the Roman represents all faithful Christians called to resist and keep alive the flame of faith in the midst of darkness. The prophecy speaks of extreme persecution against the Church. Is this literal, spiritual, or both? In recent years, we have already witnessed a global increase in hostility toward Christian values, the marginalization of faith in the public and political spheres, internal scandals that have shaken the credibility of the Church, open attempts to disfigure Christian morality in various cultures. These signs seem to set the stage for a time when faith will be tested as never before. If the prophecy is correct, the next pope may be called to lead the flock not in times of glory, but in times of martyrdom and painful renewal. Another chilling element of the prophecy is the reference to the destruction of the city on 7 hills, a clear allusion to Rome. But should this destruction be interpreted literally, or is it symbolic, representing the decline of the Vatican's influence or a radical transformation of the Church's structure? Some scholars suggest it could be a real catastrophe involving Rome. It could represent the loss of the Church's temporal power, making it more spiritual, or it could symbolize a profound purification, destroying what is corruptible to reveal true holiness. Whatever the interpretation, the call is clear. The Church must prepare not to protect its palaces, but to protect the faith. Despite the dark undertones of the prophecy, the Gospel reminds us that not even the gates of hell will prevail against the Church. Matthew 16:18. The future may bring persecution, crisis, and loss, but it may also bring renewal of hearts, heroic holiness, a flowering of faith in the most unlikely places. Just as in the early days of Christianity, when the apostles faced brutal persecution, the New Age may be a time of martyrs, but also a time of saints. Prophecy is not just a warning to cardinals and leaders, it is a call to every believer. If difficult times come, it will take courage to profess the faith. Corruption, love will be needed to forgive and serve. The new pope, whoever he may be, will need a flock willing to follow the way of the cross, not in fear, but in trust, in the ultimate triumph of Christ. The death of Francis, the election of the new pope, the expectation of the future. All of this points to a central truth. The history of the Church is a story of death and resurrection. Every crisis, every persecution, every trial is a miniature Easter, a seeming death, a painful silence, and a glorious resurrection that no one can stop. Thus, even if the prophecies seem frightening, even if the signs of the times are disturbing, the true message is one of hope. The risen Christ walks before his people, and his victory is certain. The prophecy of Saint Malachy, the signs of our times, the death of Pope Francis and the election of his successor invite us to reflect deeply, not to fear the future, but to live our faith with authenticity, courage, and joy, like Peter, the first fisher of men, and like Francis, the humble servant of the poor, we are called to keep the flame of faith burning. Whatever the cost, the time of tribulation may come, but the time of glory will also come. And, as the Lord promised, the church will remain standing until the end of time.